evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 245th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. It's going to be a return home for one of us, sort of. Kind of. We'll explain later in just a minute. And so without further ado, we'll get to introductions in just a moment. But we do have to thank the people that make this show possible, of course. And that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate has once again done it again with the combination of non-traditional and traditional with the Acid Kubariety Pack. Yes, the Acid Kubariety 3-pack is available now at Drew Diplomat retailers and retailers nationwide. This combines the non-traditional smoker with the traditional cigar smoker. So if you are a traditional cigar smoker and would like to try some non-traditional cigars, or if you're a non-traditional fan and would like to try a traditional cigar for the very first time, the Kubariety Pack from Drew Estate is your ticket. So you definitely want to check this out because it is a huge bargain and it's a great way to try something different from Drew Estate. So for the price of 2 Acid Kubas, purchasers receive 3 cigars with a free Underground Shade cigar included in the pack. The specially selected cigars inside are all Robustos 5x54 and packaged inside resealable fresh packs with a Boveda humidification system to make sure that the product remains fresh for any time that you want to enjoy. So check out the Acid Kubariety Pack today if you want to try something new or try something old or maybe combine the two. The best is always yet to come from Drew Estate. And welcome, everybody. This is our 245th take, and without further ado, it is my pleasure, my privilege to welcome back to ELOSOFUMARTAKES for our 245th take, sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Mr. Andy Yaffee of Micallef Cigars. Andy, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Barry. You know, we were talking before going live that this is probably the first night that I've actually this year been able to sit outside and do anything like with a cigar because it's just been so damn cold. But it's beautiful tonight. I'm ready for this. This is going to be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, this weekend was absolutely perfect. I was so
same here.
I was so disappointed because you know my son started his second season of baseball, his first spring season, and you know how hot it gets in here in Texas, and I'm just like waiting for that. So it rained here quite a bit on Friday. He had scheduled games yesterday for Saturday, and they like canceled the game like at 9 a.m. Friday morning from rain that we had Thursday night. And Friday, I'm like, oh man. And the weather was absolutely beautiful. Like we spent all day outside yesterday, and I was like, this would have been a great day. Why did they cancel it? Because of rain, because the fields were the fields were all messed up.
The fields are too wet. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
But like I wouldn't buy, and the fields were like fine. But you know they're city owned, and you know when kids chomp around on just run around on the fields, they can get messed up and stuff. And I guess they just
I see.
Don't
that somewhat reminds me when I was growing up in Florida, and you'd have that hurricane that was headed your way. And they would say, schools canceled or whatever, and everybody would be home. And then it would turn at the last minute. And it was this gorgeous day that everybody just got a free day at home to play with their friends because it turned at the last minute. They couldn't change their mind.
Right. Man, that's crazy. We've had some pretty extreme. I mean, it's barely still the end of March, and we've already had some extreme weather. And Mississippi, of course, got the worst of it this past couple days and stuff. And man, it's gearing up for an adventurous spring. But I saw that you already lit up. Let's light up a cigar together. You were kind enough, very kind, Andy. Thank you so much for sending me some cigars. I've always got some A's on hand because you know how much I love that cigar. The OG is definitely one of my go-tos, but you sent me some A's as well, but some unique sizes here. Yeah. And also some Medallia SCs, man. So, I mean, you sent these to me, man. So what would you like me to light up? It's your choice.
All right. So you said you're a fan of the A blend. I lit up the new A Robusto. Okay. That will be available to retailers coming up in a couple weeks here. Have you tried this size? I know you've had a lowercase A at some point in the original.
And I've had the Gordo.
Have you had the?
I have not had the
Robusto.
I have not had the Robusto yet.
I think the Robusto is the perfect size for this blend. It just pops with the flavor. And I love the lowercase a because I love the flavor that gives out too. The problem I have with the lowercase a is I chain smoke them because they're so small. They get out, they run out on me too quick. Where this is the perfect size to where you don't have to spend too much time, but enough time to have a good smoke. So I want you to try this one first, just because that's what I lit up. And was I supposed to wait for you to light up?
Absolutely.
Like,
No, I
feel,
always wait.
okay.
And I always ask my guests to pick my cigar. It's a tradition here. So
Okay.
So no.
I didn't want to be rude.
Absolutely not, man. Like you said, the weather's like just phenomenal. Why wouldn't you? So
Okay.
are you pairing it with
let's
anything tonight?
First. So I just have some good old fashioned Gatorade next to me. Unfortunately, I'm getting over being sick this week, so nothing too crazy for me. Trying to stay hydrated.
Yeah, I've got some water as well. So if I had some spirits available, but if you were going to partake, I'd toast with you. But we'll just we'll stick to the old fashioned hydration and smoke some maize together here. So I'm looking forward to this, man. I Robusto. I keep getting asked that, and I've always kind of said that Robustos and Coronas are my favorite size, and I think Coronas are like what I'm in love with, but I think I smoke more Robustos than anything else.
Yeah, I would say the same. What in your opinion, Bear, is the correct size of a Corona? Like, what is your definition of a Corona size? Because I know it varies depending on the brand or the person. What would you say your favorite? Is it like a 46? Is it thinner than that?
I would have to say that it's definitely smaller for me. I mean the traditional size of a Corona is 5 5/8 by 42. And so I would say that I'm pretty much on par with that.
That's really fun. Okay.
But I would say 44, is fine. 46, something like that. Like 48, like that might as well be a Robusto. That might as well be a Robusto at that point if it's a 48. Because I mean, a traditional Robusto is 5 by 50. So
well, this one's going to be a 5 by 52, so a little bit fatter than the 5 by 50 traditional Robusto. But we've decided, with the exception of the Crema in our line, most of our Robustos are going to be that 5 by 52 size.
Sorry, I'm just taking this first one in, enjoying the moment.
Thoughts? Yeah.
I don't think there's been this much silence on my show before, so it's kind of weirding people out a bit.
I could bring up something to talk about. What do you get? What notes are you getting? Bear, one of the things I always respected about you, because I've known you for a long time, is your palate is phenomenal. And every time that we had gotten together back in my days visiting Michael's, you would just explain to me the craziest things, but they were all just mind-blowingly right. So what are you getting out of this?
Well, one of the things that I really like that's still true in this size, and I mean it's all about the tobacco at this point, right? But like, what I really like about the A is that the rustic nature of it. The wrapper is very, it's not like ridiculously toothy. It's not like a topographical map of like the Andes or anything like that. But like, it's just, it's got some nice tooth to it. It's got some nice rusticness to it. I really kind of like that about it. The flavor that it kind of imparts to me, like now we're talking about the OG, and then I'll compare it to the Robusto here in a second. For the first couple of puffs here, is that the OG kind of admits this kind of campfire essence without like the barbecuiness of smoke. You know what I'm talking about? Like, so not that like that sweet mesquite or pecan or anything like that. Just like real hearty campfire to it, but there's this underlying sweetness that you get, which is like it balances out that kind of ruggedness of it a little bit, kind of smooths out the edges a little bit. That's why I really like the OG of A. No, that's what I'm getting so far. You're right. I think pop is a pretty good definition of it. Like that's the spice, that pepper that is really prominent in the other vitolas of the A, really kind of hits the palate, and then it really resonates on the retrohale.
Yeah.
in the first couple of puffs here. So uh, yeah, I can already notice difference here, but I can taste I can taste those familiar flavors too, which is really great. So I'm gonna enjoy this, man. I know it.
We might have found you a new size of one of your favorite cigars.
Mm-hmm.
This one is the one I've been gravitating to since we were able to get our hands on it. So it's been so what we did with this cigar this year, actually, we did it with two of them. We also have a Robusto size that came out in the Riata blend, which is another popular blend for us. Very, lighter smoke, a little creamier. So, we want to bring more traditional sizes to our portfolio over, the near future. So these were kind of the two of the first ones that we introduced as Robustos to our line. And what we did is in the beginning part of this year is we would have them only available to pre-release events for our retail partners. So the only way that the ambassadors or retail store could get a hold of them is by hosting a Micallef event. So we did that for the first couple months of this year, and then that has now transitioned into another pre-release cigar, which we can get to a little later. And the A Robusto, Riata Robusto, will officially be available to any retailer starting in early April. So we're excited to get these on the shelves all over the place. But the feedback that we got on the Robustos, especially from a lot of the ambassadors, was fantastic. People were people that got their hands on it were posting pictures on our group all day long. They really, really, really enjoyed these two new Robustos, and I do too.
Nice. Do you guys kind of get like I'm getting this really very prominent sweetness like on the finish on the retro, like once you like expel all the smoke, it's just kind of this lingering sweetness, like it's like dates. I don't know if you've eaten a lot of dates. I happen to love them, but
like a date or a dried fruit,
like dried like a fig
fruit.
or like a plum, prune, but not.
I could get that. I could get the plum prune notes off of it.
Yeah, not as pruny. It's a terrible description. But yeah, no, it's nice though. It's nice how it just kind of lingers. It's really cool. This is good. Thank you so much for giving these for getting these out to me, Andy, so we can enjoy them together. So appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So as we kind of kick things off here, before we kind of jump into our major point and everything, I did want to talk to you about a couple. First of all, congratulations with an order, an engagement a couple months ago. So congratulations to you. So fantastic.
Thank you.
But I also know that, like, and I said, in my introduction, that it was like kind of a welcome home of sorts. You called Texas home for quite a long time. But Nashville has been your home for, is it coming on about the same amount of time, or how much longer were you in Texas?
Actually, I was in Texas about 9 years.
Okay.
But not all of that was in the cigar industry. I got into the cigar industry after I had already kind of settled down in Texas. Prior to that, I worked for Hilton. Right. And, managing hotels and stuff, and made the transition. And then I was in my house for 5 months 5 years and 1 month exactly.
Okay.
Was that house that I owned in Euless. And then prior to that, I lived in Texas for another 3.5 years in various apartments or what have you. So it was 8 and change, maybe 8.5 years to be exact.
And you've been in Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I moved here. It'll be another 5 weeks from now. It'll be 5 years.
Okay. So it's gotten further along. I didn't think we'd kind of hit that equal ways point.
No.
But this is your second stint in Nashville. Am I correct?
So yeah, prior to living in Texas, I lived in Nashville for a year, and that was part of my Hilton journey. That took me out of Florida up here for a hotel, and then it took me to Fort Worth.
Okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what do you miss most? What do you miss most about living in Texas? Because I know you travel quite a bit still. The food.
I mean, it's it's easy. The barbecue, the food, the beef, everything, all the food in Texas is fantastic. And obviously, I missed some friends that I made while I was there. Um, but the food was just phenomenal. And I haven't found. I mean, I'm always searching for comparable barbecue or comparable steak to what I enjoyed in Texas, and I don't find it. It's very hard to find. So I do miss that. As far as the scenery, I like the scenery here in Nashville. It's the hills, the nature's a little bit more prominent here. That's a little bit more, my style of things that I like to do in my free time. But yeah, it's the food without a doubt.
I mean, I grew up in El Paso, so that's beauty in a different way. I mean, it's desert, which can be beautiful, but when you grow up, I mean, it's been 18 years in it, you move to the DFW area and you're like, oh my God, the green's actually a color you see in nature, which is kind of cool. People have lawns, like that was a really foreign concept to me too. But as I went further east to, like you said, like I've visited Nashville a number of times and Kentucky and everything, like the scenery, you're absolutely right, I think is just gorgeous. And I think there are parts of like the hill country that I consider absolutely breathtaking and probably my favorite parts of Texas.
I agree.
But the Nashville, Kentucky, like the Tennessee, Kentucky area to me I think has some of the most beautiful parts of this country that I've been in. So for sure.
Believe it or not, I actually liked visiting El Paso when I would go out there for sales calls with the previous company.
Oh, it's a great place to visit, man.
The people out there were fantastic, super friendly. I love the damn, what is it? The star on the side of the mountain.
Yeah,
I thought that was so freaking cool at night. But yeah, I don't know if I could live there. But it was like you said, it was a fun place to visit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's night and day between El Paso and Dallas. I mean, it's so funny to tell people that El Paso is actually closer to the Pacific Ocean than it is to the Metroplex.
Yes.
And it's still in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's crazy.
And I've made that drive 3 or 4 times from DFW to El Paso, and it's quite a trip.
More times than I can count. I've done that. It's crazy how many times I've done that.
I have sympathy for you for doing it more than I have.
So do you know why? Quick, cool little history lesson. Do you know why the star, why that exists?
No, I've always wanted to know the story behind it.
So they originally had it for they kept it lit until soldiers returned home from the Persian Gulf. Really nice. That was why it was originally started, and then how it stays lit now. So once the soldiers returned, they kept it lit so like you can actually, and it's actually still pretty reasonable. I checked it out the other day for some of the reasons because I just wanted to see like what inflation had done to it. But it's remarkably reasonable to actually keep that star lit for the night, and you can do it in honor of or in memory of, like, hey, this is for my buddy Andy. It's his birthday today. That's in honor of it. And they announce it on all the news networks still, like, hey, the star is being lit, tonight in honor of Andy Yaffee and his birthday.
So it's not normally always lit?
No, it is. No, the streak is very much alive.
Oh, okay. They'll just say tonight's designated to this certain event.
Yeah.
What kind of light is it? I mean, can you go up to it?
You can.
Like the mountain?
It's been so long. I was a child last time I was up there. I believe it's got to be electrical of some kind. It has to be. I mean, there might be some solar component to it now, but I don't even know. But yeah, I mean, I remember. Yeah, I mean, I was a child the last time I was up there.
Huh. Cool. That's a cool story.
Yeah. So, let's get a little bit into your story here. And so, as always, our major point is always brought to you by the people. Yes, cigar people, people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, Maybe it is. But behind the fun is a motivation for service, a motivation for giving back. From the original Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series, Phoebe Cousins, Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has been and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol Cigars. So, Andy, we took a little bit of time there to talk a little bit about your journey. You mentioned you had been in hospitality and everything like that. So I know your journey with cigars, at least, might have started at your days at UCF. That's where you met our mutual friend, John Carney, and that's how you got into the cigar industry, which we'll get to in just a second. Is that when you had your first cigar? Was in college, or did you have it prior in high school, or not even, or am I completely off? Did you have it later?
No, the first cigar was prior in high school. Actually, it was just one of those things. My best friend growing up, his dad was a big cigar smoker, and he just always kind of was interested in it, and he dabbled a little bit in it. And we said, when we're 18, we want to get into this, or at least experiment with it. We didn't really know what we were getting into yet. It just looked,
Right.
it looked cool, it looked fun, it looked elegant, just to watch people smoke cigars, and it smelled good. So we went and purchased, they no longer exist. It's called a Heaven Vanilla, and smoked it on
Oh
New
yeah.
Smyrna Beach with a 6-pack of root beer. And that was my first cigar experience. And we thought it was, we just thought it was awesome. But we didn't know any better. Like, we were like, man, we want another one. So we went to 7-Eleven and grabbed I think it was a Swisher Sweet that was sitting there, and we lit that up and like, oh, this is completely different. So we learned real quick the difference between premium and machine made. But that was my first dive in. It took a while for me to graduate from flavored cigars to non-flavored cigars, but it was just a progression over time. It became easily one of our favorite hobbies to do when we were off. After a long day of school, let's smoke a cigar. On the weekends, let's get together, have a cigar, and catch up. And it just became a way of life for me. I never realized at the time it would become this kind of way of life. It was more of a once a week thing. But now that was the beginning of it all.
Yeah, I started smoking regularly pretty early on. And yeah, I smoked a lot of machine made just because that's all I could afford, early on. But my first cigar actually was a premium cigar. It was a Fonseca, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And then, but as you know the story, my audience does too. Like La Flor Dominicana was my first foray into the premium, what I call my first introduction to the premium cigar realm. Because it was I had other premium cigars, but it was this is it.
This is
And
different.
it was, this is different. And I was I call it, that was my calling at the moment. And that's the reason I'm here. And it was your predecessor's predecessor, Jack Sandlin, who got me into it.
I miss Jack. I haven't heard that name in a little while.
Right.
Good dude. When I first started dabbling into the non-flavored stuff, it was more La Roma de Cuba was one that stood out to me. We smoked a lot of Olivas. I always thought LFD was way too strong when I would try them before I ended up working for them. I didn't really care for them, to be honest. I mean, I grew to really, really love them, but in the early days, it wasn't something I gravitated towards. I just thought they were too much for me. But I'm 180 on that thought now.
Well, this was early 2000s. So this is the single Ligero, not the double Ligero, the original Ligero.
Oh yeah.
And now I can smoke that for breakfast, and I think it's fantastic. But that thing fucking kicked my ass, man. That was an awakening. And I was like, I want more of this.
The double, I don't think they came out till 05, 06.
Yeah, it was a few years later.
I didn't graduate high school till 02. So that was all when I was still in my discovery phase for cigars.
Yeah, we graduated the same year. So yeah, it was like my freshman year at TCU. I walked into Pop Safari, which, unfortunately, Perry Tong's no longer with us, and Pops is no longer with us.
Sad.
So sad. And that was the moment, man. It was crazy.
And you worked for him for a little bit.
I did.
But,
Yeah.
he was literally one of the most interesting men in the world.
He really
Like,
was.
there wasn't a thing that I don't think he ever didn't experience. Like, he experienced like everything.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, he truly was like seriously. Like, could have just had him to do the Dos Equis commercials, and I think it would have been fine. Like,
Oh yeah.
and I think it would have been real. But what real quick, and then we'll jump into the cigar journey part. Like, what you went into college for hospitality, and that was your first career. So
Mhm.
like, so what was it about hospitality or the hotel business or that spoke to you early on?
I think a lot of it was my family was big on taking family trips and family vacations. And, you grow up in Orlando, you're entrenched and surrounded by hospitality. You got Disney there, all the hotels, restaurant, I mean, everything, guest service, customer service. It's the mecca of customer service and, in the United States, as far as I'm concerned. Um, and I just always had an interest in how it works, like how hotels work. Originally, I wanted to go into restaurants. However, I have a really bad shellfish allergy. So I learned pretty early that I couldn't chase a restaurant dream because I couldn't be around shellfish.
Oh, it's
But then
that
I
bad.
just, oh yeah, I can't be in a kitchen while you're cooking shellfish. My lungs will shut down.
Duly noted. Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Next time you're in town, I won't be making that, or
yeah,
I
no,
won't
no
have made.
shellfish. So I jumped into hotels. I just got me and my buddy, my best friend, the same guy, we got a front desk job at the Westin Grand Bohemian in downtown Orlando, it's a high upscale luxury hotel. And I just love the whole guest service thing. I love the culture. I love the benefits of getting, free hotel rooms. I've always been a travel freak. So I went for that and went to school for it and graduated and got into an MIT program, and that's what took me, on the journey that I went on with Hilton.
That's awesome. Everyone's giving us crap, Andy, because we're making them feel old. I want to put another number out here for you people. So Andy and I started smoking when we were 18 years old. We've actually been smoking longer than William Cooper of Cigar Coop. So I just want to put that out there. He didn't have it. So I've been smoking cigars longer than Coop.
Another way to think about it too, Bear. We've been smoking cigars longer than we haven't been smoking
Yeah,
cigars.
that's also true. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yes. And my mother still talks to me about quitting. So
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
I could go through all these stories about people that think, you shouldn't be smoking.
Well, she also thinks I should shave because I'm so handsome. I was like, Mom, how do you even remember? I've had facial hair since I was 13, which is, again, to your point, I've had facial hair longer than I didn't have facial hair. So I don't get it, but I digress. So,
Yeah.
So you get into the cigar business with La Flor de Minicara, like we had talked about. Again, and we've told the story on a couple shows. I was there the day you got the job at Michael's Tobacco Viewless, or I don't think you were hired there. You were hired at another location. You guys came there to celebrate.
It was the same. Yeah, it was the same week, basically. So, yeah.
And then you go through a great tenure with them, and then you decide to make a change, both by company and geography. You move back to what you had called home years earlier, Nashville, and you start working for Nat Sherman. Now, was there another? I can't remember. Did you go for Nat Sherman, or was there another job in between? I can't remember.
No, it was a straight transition from LFD to Nat Sherman. There was my ex-wife and I had an opportunity to come back here for work for her, and we were in a place where we needed a change, and we took that change. And I remember talking to Carney about it, and he actually supported it. He couldn't transfer me. He had somebody that was more than capable here to do the job, but he helped me along the way with Michael Herklotz. and we made a straight transition from LFD to Nat Sherman on the the Southeast territory. When I moved over here, I had like 2 weeks off and then went straight into training.
Oh, I wondered if you just missed wearing a suit.
I missed wearing a suit.
I don't know if you had missed wearing it, because that was the uniform for Nat Sherman reps. I remember. Is it like
no, yeah. I remember that. Yeah, for day one was I had to go shopping for ties. So actually, it's funny. I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car for like 4 months, and it was in college. Actually, I think it was right out of college.
I think everyone worked for Enterprise for 4 months.
I know, and everybody runs. That was just an awful job. And I remember when I went to run Enterprise, you have to wear a tie.
Yeah,
everyone has to wear a tie, and they want you to wear a coat. And that was the first time I ever really had to wear a tie, or I had to get my own tie. When I worked at the Grand Bohemian, they supplied you with a tie. This was the first job where I had to go find my own ties. And actually, for a little bit, it was kind of a fun game for me to find fun, colorful, cool looking ties. And I ended up collecting like 20 of them. And then I quit Enterprise because I hated it. And they just sat in my closet for, I don't know, what was that, 8-9 years. And all of a sudden I get with Nat Sherman. I was like, hey, I got a use for all these ties again. So I was able to bring them back out for the gig with Nat Sherman, because I mean, you didn't have to wear black and white. You just had to dress in a suit
right.
and tie. Which I don't. No offense to Nat Sherman, I don't personally love wearing a suit and tie. I don't mind wearing a suit. Ties to me always get, I don't know, a little bit uncomfortable. My fiance is watching this right now, and she's laughing because I'm making comments about ties, and I told her I didn't want to wear a tie at my wedding. So
that's you hate that much. Okay, there you go. That tracks. Yeah, I've always enjoyed dressing up. I think the one thing I've hated about the last few years with COVID and everything, and like working at home and stuff like that, I don't wear normal clothes as much anymore. So like and so I've kind of become uncomfortable in like regular everyday clothes, which sucks. Like I don't wear pajamas to work or anything like that. I'm just usually in shorts and a t-shirt or a polo shirt or something like that. Like that's it, nothing crazy.
I don't mind dressing nice. Like I do enjoy like a nice button down collared shirt. I just don't like ties. And I think a little bit of it has to do with the flashbacks to Enterprise. I really do.
No, I get that.
The PTSD from that job where you had to sell your you said everybody worked for Enterprise. Did you work for Enterprise?
Yeah, for about 4 months. Seriously, that was the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I had nightmares about CDW for years. Those of you who have worked for Enterprise watching this know exactly what CDW means.
Man, I thought I want to. They had this really attractive like manager track program that they like put everybody on.
That's what I was on.
And then
you had to go through like 5 brutal interviews just to even get into it.
Yeah, I've had some exhausting interview processes, and one of them is the current job I hold now in my day job. I went through what I call the gauntlet, and that was I was exhausted at the end of it, like just exhausted. But that was like it reminded me a lot of Enterprise. My brother works for the same company too. We both worked the same. Our day jobs are the same. We both worked for Enterprise too for a few months. He went through again both times. He went through the process first, and when I got done with my interview at Service Autopilot where I work now, and he was like, what was it like? I was like, you remember Enterprise Rent-A-Car? He's like, I know, right? And I was like, yeah, exactly. It's like the gauntlet. So, so fast forward. Yeah, I guess you were part of the, for lack of a better term, the mass exodus of North American reps, I believe, at Nat Sherman, right? There was a transition period where they like a bunch of the reps went out, or was it around? It wasn't around the time of the sale, because you've been with Micallef for a few years at this point. So
there was always that hanging cloud, and I noticed it right away with the Altria thing. And, you know, bless Michael Herklotz. He did a fantastic job continuing the legacy of Nat Sherman, even though there was that cloud that was following all of us. And I actually left prior to then offering severances and stuff. So I left first, and then I think some of the guys were offered you can either stay on board or you could get a severance. We don't know what basically is going to go on with the company. This is your opportunity. So my associate now, Brandon Luna, he took the severance, and I was maybe 3 weeks early on leaving Nat Sherman.
Oh,
I didn't get it. And I think Lafferty was the other one that took one. I don't know if you would call it a mass exodus. There was a couple guys that left. They tried to fill those roles, I think, with some of the cigarette guys, because they were trying to downsize that department too. But there was still about a year, 2 years maybe, between that situation and when they actually sold. They might have sold quicker if it weren't for COVID, but COVID might have delayed that. But it was a good 2 years, because then I was able to try to get a couple of those guys on my team for a little bit. And that was after I had been elevated to my current role.
Yeah, so you started with Micallef as a regional sales rep. I believe hired by your predecessor, Trey Andrews. We both know from our he's still in the cigar business too, which is great. And then you're elevated to your current role of national sales director. So I mean, that was a pretty rapid ascent for you. I mean, was that like a lot of like drinking from a fire hose, or like, you know, was it just that seamless of a transition that it was really comfortable for you because you were working with so many people that you had in the past and stuff?
Well, no, it was, I mean, there was a little bit of comfortability, or I can't even say the word, you know, working with Luna. But you know, when they elevated me, when we chose to elevate me, and that was the beginning of 2020, we had a lot of good plans. We had a good plan for the future, and we wanted to enact it right away. However, then COVID hit. So, you know, a lot of those plans for what we wanted to achieve in 2020, 2021 was kind of delayed a little bit. And, you know, where the drinking from the fire hose thing really came into play is the day that, you know, everybody was taken off the road. And, you know, we had to figure out a way to still be relevant and a way to still talk about Micallef Cigars without actually being in front of people. So, you know, that's when we started that all day, every day video cast. I mean, we were basically newscasters or TV producers. We did that for 2 months. You were on one of our shows.
Yeah.
We did Off the Record. We did the Micallef Madness. We had the Micallef Morning Show. We had the Ambassador Roundtable, where we invited the consumers, the ambassadors, onto our show to talk. I mean, that was a lot, because that was nonstop, 6 days a week. We were doing that, and you know, after that and COVID, you know, ended, and we were able to, you know, transition back on the road. You know, it was still a lot, but I learned so much from the shows and talking to, you know, other people that were in my position with other companies. I learned a lot from those guys when we were doing interviews. One of my biggest questions is like, you know, what can I learn from you? You've been doing this longer than I have, and that was very, very helpful. But you know, this industry is so ever changing. I don't know if you ever really feel settled into a position like this. Like you're always trying to, you know, get better. You're trying to progress. You're trying to get your team to do better. You're trying to, you know, get more consumers to try your product. It's it's always evolving. So seamless transition? No, not really.
Well, fast forward a couple of years through all of COVID, you guys did, you know, we've talked about this in previous shows and everything. You guys did a fantastic job of engaging with your consumers. The ambassador program has taken off to, I mean, incredible heights. You guys have done some really really amazing stuff. And what's really great is it's consumer focused, but at the same time, you're taking care of your customer, which is actually the retailer in the same regard, which is just terrific. You guys put out, I know it's not the appropriate term, but you guys put a mission statement. I call it the Micallef Manifesto. That's my nickname for it. But I love it because everything that you guys set out to do, you did it. And I mean, as a retailer or as a consumer or as just simply a fan, like, I mean, that's all you could ever ask from a company or from anyone. And you guys, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't easy, but you did it, and it was really, really terrific. So fast forward to this past summer, you guys returned to the show after a couple year absence, right? COVID being problematic in there, but it was all part of this plan.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your impression. So it was your first show as a member of Micallef.
No, actually, I was at the.
That's right. You were just hired on.
2019 show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
but I mean, our message was completely different.
Right.
Night and day then to this year.
That's true.
Back then, I had just kind of come on board. Dan Thompson had just come on board at that point in time. Amanda Micallef still had not come on board at the 2019 show. And it was pretty obvious that we weren't preaching any type of direction or identity that we wanted to have in this industry at that time. And it was pretty evident. And, Dan Thompson made the decision with Al and said, hey, we're not going to go back to the show until we create that, until we have something to preach. That was part of the reason of backing out. And then, COVID actually, made it even easy, that just gave us another year. But we felt ready last year in the beginning of the year. We felt ready to showcase an identity, to showcase a direction that we want to take as a company. And, we had set that up prior to that. It wasn't just the PCA where it was like, hey, this is our coming out party. Like, we had done we're not selling to big online anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to engage in our consumers. We're going to do these ambassador gift cards to where they can spend, we're basically giving our consumers money to go spend it at their retailer. At
your customers,
they don't have to buy Micallef. A lot of them do, but they don't have to. There's no forcing of that. And we made sure to say it's like, hey, we're not spending, we're spending our marketing dollars on that instead of just throwing up a page ad in a magazine that gets skimmed over. We felt confident enough last year that we could set up the show and really preach. That was where we were going, and that was our identity. And I know you got a chance to go around. We kind of had this 4-pillar situation at the show where one of them was talking about not selling to big online. One of the pillars was talking about we're spending our marketing dollars with you. And then, another thing that we were doing that we felt pretty good about showing off was we're rebranding. We have this new logo that's fresh. We have this new Vista, that we'll be using on these boxes. We have these new boxes. All this stuff we felt really comfortable with showcasing last year. And that was one of the main reasons we decided to go back to the show. And I'll tell you what, the benefits of being at that show last year are still showing today. I mean, we had a very good residual effect in Q4 and into Q1 on being at the show. And, I think that was just the beginning. I mean, there's stuff that we're doing this year that, I'm just super excited to share. And unfortunately, some of that stuff I can't speak of on the show yet. But it's really exciting to see all the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears that we've had to put in is finally going to come to fruition this year. And we're very, very excited about showing it off and growing as a company with our retailers and our ambassadors. We love growing with them too.
So I want to go back to the booth experience that you were just describing, because it was, and I call it an experience because it was the most unique setup that I've seen, that I've experienced at a trade show. It was I I don't even necessarily equivocate it to a journey. But it was in a sort of way. It was more than that. It was kind of, and indoctrination has such negative connotation probably, but it kind of was. It was an indoctrination into the doctrine. Again, there's the using a word to describe a word. I'm just going to keep doing that tonight, apparently. But it was, just really understanding the philosophy, like you said, the direction, the identity of what Micallef was going to be going forward. And like I said, it was one of the most unique experiences. It was one of my favorite. I had the opportunity to interview Dan. It was one of my favorite interviews, and probably the most unique interview that I've ever done in a trade show.
Yeah, it was totally one-on-one. I mean, I got the chance to walk around a little bit. It was the way he did it, like you said, it was kind of like, it was like a story. It was like this is where we're going, like kind of like a timeline of, why we're here, where we're going, what got us here type deal. And I unfortunately I wish I could have done some of those walkarounds a little bit more with you guys, but I was, helping out the guys and stuff like that on the sales floor. But
damn you for doing your job, Andy. Damn you.
But the whole journey that we were taking our retailers on, and our media, press, whoever came to the booth on, was very, very detailed about what we believe in, and where we want to go as a company, how we want to grow. So you weren't the only one to give us great feedback on those 4 pillars. So it was very, very fulfilling.
So this is something I've always wanted to ask you, because we talked about how you were part of La Flor Dominicana, who has its own story, fostered in the boom of the 90s, which we weren't around for. And then it became this great thing that you again became part of that story, but the identity was kind of already established. It was already there. And Nat Sherman, 80 plus years, of course, of story and family legacy to boot. And then now, but here's like, and this is, I always have trouble remembering, and this is a good thing. I always have trouble remembering that Micallef is a new company, that you guys haven't been around forever. And I think that's a good thing, because you guys have done such tremendous work at building the identity that you talk about. But what's it like? I mean, that's completely different than your other 2 experiences. And those 2 experiences were different from each other too, I realize, but this is way different.
Oh, it's a different battle. This is the first brand that I've had to be a part of building. There wasn't there, when you say it doesn't feel like we're that old of a company, that has a lot to do with the fact that, we're doing a lot of these things, a lot of these shows. Another thing is we came out, when the Gomez Sanchez family and Al partnered, there was 16 different blends right off the bat. And everybody was like, what the heck is going on here? Like, who are these people? They've been around they have to have been around for a while, but no, you just have to attack it differently. When I was with LFD, in the very beginning with LFD, we were still in a brand building stage, not anywhere like we're with Micallef, but there was still some, identity building, some, getting more consumers to try the product. And then when the bull hit number 1, it was, it just skyrocketed. It was a completely different story overnight, and it became more of a, order taking or customer service oriented job. Where this is, I had, when I first got on with Micallef, 50-60% of the stores I was going into had no idea what it was. They didn't know what Micallef was. And so you need to go in there and tell them the story, have them try the cigars. We have very, very high confidence in the quality of the cigars that we produce, to where, we feel like we can hand it out to people and they're going to enjoy it and be like, okay, these guys are going somewhere. But like I told you, the identity crisis that was in the beginning with Micallef, that has been the most difficult thing to kind of change. And I think we're really close to having that 180 on what it was when I first came on board. But, going in and facing that, the first couple of years they did it this way, it really didn't work out. It's not really, what we wanted to do. It kind of got cloudy and muddled and that kind of thing. But this is what we're going to do now. And part of that, like you said, the mission statement was the first, that was the first step. And, now we can go into these retailers when we're trying to grow this brand with that statement of like, hey, this is where we're going. This is what we're going to do. And this is what
we've done. Look what we've done.
Yeah. Look what we've done. Look what we have. But I mean, it's a daily battle, to be completely honest. There's still a lot of doubts in our brand out there because of mistakes that were made in the beginning. There's still a lot of doubt in our brand of, what actually can we create? What can we do that's like really, really going to grab the consumer base? There's still some of that stuff. And, we're working on that. We're building that to where I feel like really soon we're going to have some of those answers. It just took a while to get to it because we had a lot to clean up and a lot to change to have a different narrative out there. But, the biggest thing with us in growing has been the fact that we want to grow with the brick and mortars of this industry and not with the big online guys. We want to grow with the backbone of the industry. We want to, we don't want to undercut them. We don't want to, have money taken away from them by, someone who's selling our cigars for half price or what have you. And then we're going to take our ambassador group. And that's another thing that, gets people to believe in us is we've built this army of ambassadors that show up at events, that call random stores for cigars when they post a picture on the ambassador page. Guys have created customers that they didn't know were out there. So it's been a battle. It really has. And, but we're at a point now that I'm so excited about what's coming out in the next like 18 months that I haven't been at in since I'm with the company, to be honest.
So you talk about some of the challenges that, and I know you're not far removed, but you're removed enough now in your current role where you're not visiting these brick and mortars and having those challenging conversations like some of your reps are, but you did that for a while. What are some of the, if you don't mind sharing, what are some of the specific challenges that, what would a retailer say to you? I don't know if I want to place an order with you because X. What's a popular or a common thing that your people hear that's easy to overcome with some of the stuff that you're talking about?
Well, the most challenging answer you always get is I don't have shelf space. That's big. So you have to convince them that, to make shelf space for you. Or why you? Why no one comes in here asking for our cigars? And it's okay, well, this is why. We don't sell behind your back. We don't do this. We have this ambassador group that's here. We have this new packaging that's coming out. We have these great cigars in all different price points. It starts at the $5 Torsador all the way up to the Reserva. We have something for every palate here. And it's about selling them on Micallef is a company that cares about the brick and mortar. And we put the brick and mortar first. That's the biggest thing. And, a lot of complaints in the past was, hey, your portfolio scares me. It's 16 blends deep. We recognize that. And we're taking steps to minimize it and focus on, where we want to go in the future. We retired the Grande Bold beginning of this year. That was a step to get away from an influence of another person or company and just focus on what we can do and what we can do in house. And it was also a way to minimize the attention of the brand. Another thing was we had some funky sizes that we're going to be discontinuing those as well. and just, focusing on making sure that we have the traditional sizes, the Toros, the Robustos. We're trying to make it less confusing for our retailers to partner with us. And we have the ability, to do that with, our own factory down in Nicaragua. So those are some of the steps that we're taking to make it, more friendly for our retailers to do business with us.
So you mentioned a couple of things I wanted to go forward with. So you mentioned the retiring of the Grande Bold line, which was make no mistake. That was a pretty big sacrifice for you guys, because
it cuts our portfolio in half.
It was incredibly popular too.
Basics.
I love the Modafina, man. Like that cigar was good. That cigar was very good. I was so sad to see that was going to go. I understand it, like what you're talking about.
Well, believe it or not, too, the Grande Bold sales were dwindling quickly over the last few years. And that was another reason that we made that decision. Other than parts that, we didn't have full control on what the final product that was being put on shelves was. That always was a sticking point as well. But the sales of that smoke had dwindled over the last few years to where we felt comfortable enough that we can move on from that and fill in those gaps with stuff that we are a lot more confident about filling in those gaps with. Stuff that we can make in our factory. And we're going to be starting to release stuff to make up for those blends that we're losing. Like the Modafina Brazilian wrapper, that's not an easy blend to mimic. Brazilian wrappers are fantastic. We're going to have to work on trying to find a way to get around that. The Nicaraguan full bodied smoke that I thought to me was the fullest of the Grande Bold. We have something that we're working on now that's going to be, full bodied. So there's going to be things that we're going to be doing to bring it out. It was just, it was one of those things where we needed to pull the plug, and we needed to do it to switch gauges to that direction that we're going to go into now. And, also we saw it as an opportunity to do some charitable work too, because we're going to be donating everything that was left over. I don't know exactly how many sticks it was, but there's a good amount of sticks that we're donating to Cigars for Warriors.
Oh, that's awesome.
Those guys are going to freaking love that. And hey, guess what too? They're going to smoke those and know what Micallef is now.
That's a good point.
Those guys are big cigar smokers. So we're excited. I think, currently we're gathering all that up to send to them, and we'll probably be making, a big deal about it when it actually goes out to the troops. But it was a tough decision because yes, there was a lot of our ambassadors love the Grande Bolds.
We have a few smoking those tonight. They mentioned it in the chat earlier. They were smoking some of those. So yeah,
probably. We were able to pass along some savings to our retailers that, would then allow them to pass some savings on to these ambassadors. So that way they could stock up on the Bolds for a little bit, but there's still, you're like any cigar that goes out, there's going to be Bolds around for a little while. I'm sure at some point I'll be doing scavenger hunts for some of these ambassadors to get them some Bolds, but that's cool. And and another good thing is, like, we realized that, it was a quick decision. I don't know if you're familiar with our passport program,
of course,
that we do, or, this year we've kind of changed it to more of a Fave 5 program. You pick your 5 favorite sticks. They can use the Grande Bold. The ambassadors can do that this year, and it still counts because, we're still, it's a bittersweet separation, but I think we had to do it for the future of our company.
And I don't mean to step on your toes because you were being pretty vague with it. So I apologize. I'm really not trying to overreach here, but I know that the STG was the one that was helping you with the Grande Bold line. Was that to further separate yourself from big box, and again to rededicate yourself to what we were talking about, the brick and mortar shops? Was that part of that in conjunction with making the portfolio less intimidating, as we talked about too?
I don't think there was a narrative that we wanted to have to say we're doing this to separate ourselves from STG because of the big box thing. I don't think that had anything to do with it.
They weren't connected.
No, it wasn't like, hey, look what we're doing. we're separating. We're getting rid of Grande Bold because we're just strengthening our separation. No, that wasn't the motive.
Okay. So the
We have ultimate respect for those guys that are over there, and they manufacture a lot of good cigars for a lot of different companies. And there's no love lost. We have the utmost respect for them. It was just a business decision that we had to make.
yeah, part of this identity that you're talking about, this new identity that you guys are pushing forward. So yeah, that makes sense. The where was I going with this? Dang it. The Grande Bulls were more kind of the value faced forward, but the Torcedores and even the A's kind of is that what you're talking about? Is that, do you think that really forced those sales to, you were talking about them dwindling, the Grande Bulls dwindling. Do you think these, because the Torcedores are incredibly popular. I remember from the tour, we're going to get to open houses here in a little bit. From the tour, you were talking about how that's like the Torcedor Churchill, I believe, is the #1 seller, if I remember correctly.
On sticks,
on cigars,
size, yeah.
on cigars, yeah. And then the A, you know how much fan of that I am personally. So
it could have, the Bold was unique because you had basically 5 different blends that were like a focus of the smoking experience in one way or another. Either it was like you're featuring the wrapper, the Sumatra is the Sumatra wrapper, Ligero you're focusing on, there's a little extra Ligero in there. I don't know if the A and Torcedor really took away from that. I think it was more of the fact that we're growing as a company and our blends that are in our legacy portfolio have just become more popular. And our ambassadors and consumers are just taking more of those. I don't think the A's and Tours, I mean, it might have had a little bit to do with it, but I don't think that is the reason that the Grande Bold was on the decline.
Well, what's something that's on the incline, we've talked about this all throughout the show, is the A. Is the to be named, which of course became the original, what I call the OGA, which is the church. You guys call it the Churchill. And then the Gordo is released. Then the lowercase a, which becomes incredibly sought after. The reps were carrying those around. You had to have a relationship with your rep to get one. I remember smoking that for the first time. It was just magic. And then now we're smoking the Robusto together. I'm finishing it up here. I'll give my final thoughts here in a second. I love that this blend has taken off. And it's just, I love it. I mean, I even love it in the Gordo, and I'm not a big gauge guy. But it's, it's a fantastic blend. And I mean, what a price to the consumer and to the retailer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a great.
Yeah. We hit a home run with this blend, and I remember the TBN days when that first came out, and we sold, what was it, 500 units and under 48 hours and a lot of them to retailers that were just taking a chance on Micallef for the first time. And then we were able to name it the A, which was a appreciation to the ambassador group. Unfortunately, we couldn't call it ambassador. We had to call it the A.
Damn trademarks.
But the blend itself has become incredibly popular. The lowercase a was a brilliant idea. I wish I could take credit of I believe Dan Thompson, who said, "Hey, we're going to have this cigar available only for the reps for a year, and ambassadors or consumers that want to try it have to go find their rep at their local shop or at an event or what have you." And that really increased the popularity of that smoke to where when we released it, it was an immediate hit right off the bat. And now we're doing this Robusto, and I think that's probably going to close the line to just those 4 facings going forward. But the Robusto was kind of the last final touch on that line, which we're all very, very proud of. And it's been a success for us, and we're excited for the future because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, clearly not. So I'm wrapping up my first experience with the Robusto. So I will say this: I'm not ready to supplant my favorite of the Churchill yet. I've smoked so many of those, it's kind of hard to just in my first experience to say, oh, this takes over. But I will say, this has been tremendously enjoyable. I think you hit it right off the bat, man. This pops all the way through. A really nice consistent flavor all the way down. This is a lot stronger. There's a lot more strength to it. I would even say stronger than the lowercase a, which actually has a little bit more of that pop that we were talking about compared to the Churchill. The Gordo is a lot more subdued naturally, bigger gauge, less wrapper, and more filler to it and everything. But what I do like about this in comparison to the lowercase a is this gives me that cooler smoke that the Churchill and the Gordo give me. Despite it's because it's not that much bigger than the lowercase a, but it is, I would say, somewhat significantly smaller than the Churchill, and definitely the Gordo. Love that sweetness that just hits that kind of stays on the retrohale. It's kind of stayed consistent all the way through. I still get that kind of date prune that we were talking about. The spice is just fantastic. It's this really nice. I wouldn't call it like red pepper flake. It's not that sharp. It's more like a pink peppercorn, if anyone's familiar with that. Which has a nice, and has a nice, it's pepper, but it has a little bit of a fruitiness to it, which I think is kind of like what I'm tasting on the retrohale. A little bit. That rustic nature is still intact. You get that campfire, really great woodiness to it, and there's this underlying that I didn't really get in the first third, definitely prominent in the other sizes, but I finally came back in the last third here, is this kind of breadiness, like call it like a sourdough bread, and it really kind of balances that. And when you get to this point in the cigar, which I'm very far down, you think that's where it starts to get acrid. Typically on most cigar experiences, it's just that's physics. It's not nothing to do with the blend. But this is still the flavors are still very much prominent without that acridness and that sourness or that ashy burn that you get with some cigars. I've said this before. I've even said this to Carney. One of the most complex cigars that I enjoy smoking is the Capitolia Dos, which was the second cigar that Tony did after the chapter 1. But man, if you smoke that too fast, that last third is just ruthless, man. It's just, man, it just hits the palate in all sorts of bad ways. You have to really slow down to enjoy that cigar, because it'll bite you in the end if you don't. But it's really good and complex. Back to this cigar.
I agree.
Yeah, back to this cigar. Sorry to digress there, but I'm enjoying it very much. Thank you so much for getting these out to me, Andy. It's been a real pleasure smoking it with you tonight. So thank you. I've got another one here. I might light up one of the Migdalias.
That's what I was going to go with next.
Which brings me to an interesting point about Vitolas. So I love the Migdalia blend and everything, but I think the original Vitola, I think it's the Petite Robusto, it just didn't hit for me.
Really? Okay.
But I love it in all the other ones. Love it in the Corona, the Toro, this one too that I'm about to smoke, the SE
special edition.
Yeah. I've had it before. Really good. And I don't know what it is about. I mean, some Vitolas just don't hit you, but that's a really versatile blend too. Clearly.
I think it's our most complex that we have. That's just my opinion, because I get some nice sweetness and spice from the tobacco. We use a Habano wrapper on there, and there's actually a Sumatra binder, so you get that little back and forth, I think, in the flavor profile as you smoke it down. So the Migdalia is definitely a fan favorite too. The ambassadors all love it. you know, it is our best seller out of our, our core legacy line.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just such a unique cigar. I mean, Migdalia, who's the matriarch of the Gomez Sanchez family, she's the one that blended it. She's got years experience working for Castro and rolling cigars in Mexico, and she just has a fantastic palate to be able to put that out for us. And with the SC, we kind of put a little extra like extra prime leaves in that one to bring out a little bit more of that flavor and robustness on that SC, because that's a special cigar for us.
What I love about the Migdalia SE particularly, there's this brightness to it. You talk about complex. I completely agree. There's this bright citrusness that melds with like a caramel, deep sweetness. It's like grapefruit caramel, and like there's this leather component that's like the base foundation of it. And that sounds really weird, but the way it combines, it works. It just works, and it's delightful. It really is. So I'm getting like excited now. My palate's getting excited now. I'm about to light that up here.
And just so everybody knows, because there's some confusion a little bit, the Migdalia that's in the collector's edition is not the same as the ST. Those are two different smokes. So there's a lot of people out there that get confused and think that the Migdalia SE is in the collector's edition. No, they're two separate blends.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Well, basically it's the same blend, but it's two separate cigars.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well, we're gonna wrap up some things on Micallef in just a second, but I did want to take a turn. We're going to go into a couple of our fun segments for the night. And that, of course, is our first one is our presidential trivia segment. So don't worry. We are going to take you back to school, Andy, but don't worry. It's multiple choice. So this is our segment, which is always brought to you by United Cigars. Featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. Now, Andy, you obviously share a. Now, is it Andy? Is Andy your name, or is it Andrew? I've always.
So on the birth certificate, it's Andrew, but I've always gone by Andy.
You've always been Andy? Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, you actually do share a first name with a couple of our presidents. And while as colorful as Andrew Jackson has been, I've probably talked about him way too much in this segment, but he's just a very entertaining figure in history. But equally so, the other Andrew Johnson, successor to Abraham Lincoln, also has a very interesting background as well. And so this is a multiple choice question, and this is pretty straightforward. Which is not true about President Andrew Johnson? Okay. So A, he was almost assassinated the same night as Abraham Lincoln. B, he never attended school. C, he bought Alaska. D, was never voted to public office again after almost being impeached and then leaving the White House at the end of his presidency.
It would go with D.
And that is correct. That is correct. Why'd you go with that one?
Because it was the only one that didn't sound outrageous enough to be true.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I had no idea he bought Alaska.
Yeah. Well, it was commonly referred to as, like, in the history books, it's commonly referred to as Seward's folly. So William Seward was the Secretary of State for Abraham Lincoln. And then he was actually in Johnson's cabinet as well. Obviously, changed roles, but he was the one who really saw the opportunity with Alaska. And I mean, what ended up being, a land of incredible opportunity. I mean, first the gold rush in the late 1800s, and then what the oil reserves that state has given this country as well has just been, definitely paid back on that original investment, man. I mean, that's pretty killer. So he was able to do.
I had no idea.
Yeah. But yeah, he was almost killed the same night as Lincoln, which was a great story.
I had heard that one before, that he was almost killed that night. The other two did not go to school in Alaska. Just didn't fit with that last one.
Yeah, not going to school. That was pretty crazy. Like he never actually attended school. He was a tailor's apprentice was probably the only thing that but he never set foot in the schoolroom. Never.
Interesting.
And yeah, so he became a tailor, and then he actually developed into a real estate developer in Tennessee, where that's where he got money. And then he eventually like rose to power in politics in Tennessee. Eventually became like the mayor of Greenville. Then became, a congressman, then the governor, then a senator. And he was actually in the Senate when the state seceded, and he was one of the only Southerners that stuck around. Like he was actually he was a unionist. I mean, like his state seceded from the Union, and he stuck around. Like he was actually a Lincoln supporter, which put him in this really, really crazy position. Like, because a lot of Northerners saw him as a hero, and obviously he was a traitor to the South. So, which just put him in a really, really awkward position, I'm sure. But yeah, really interesting figure in history. The thing that I think was he actually was not attacked that night. He was supposed to. It was Azeroth. George Azeroth was the co-conspirator that later admit to that was supposed to be his role, and he actually never went through with it. He chickened out, essentially, for lack of a better term, and went for a walk. His cohorts, speaking of Seward, almost stabbed him to death, and then of course John Wilkes Booth was successful in assassinating, but Seward survived a terrible attack. Johnson got off completely scot-free because his would-be assassin chickened out. But
funny.
Yeah. To go back to Alaska though, 7.2 million. I don't know what that someone could probably Google what that. I didn't, but someone can probably Google what that would be in today's dollars. But 7.2 million to buy Alaska from Russia.
7, like not 70, 7.
7, yeah, 7.2.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you ask these presidential trivia questions to all your guests, right?
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of cigar guys are knowledgeable on this stuff?
Very little.
Okay.
Very little. This is like totally my thing. Like Oliver and I got together on this, and it's something that I'm pretty much obsessed with. Miguel Chodell of Crown Heads is him and I that we share that love. For the executive branch for this country. We love presidential trivia. It's just something we've always just really, really from the moment I met him, we've kind of shared and everything, and it kind of blossomed into this thing. And then Oliver's like, well, why don't you do a trivia segment? I was like, okay, sign me up, and we do it on Cigar Coop Primetime Special Edition. We do a little twist on that. I asked my guest the question on this show. Coop asks me the question on our show, and the whole point is to try and stump me.
Fact check. Okay.
Yeah. And he's taken some advice from some of our fans. And Jay Davis, who's watching right now, gave me a humdinger one time. That was crazy. It was named all the states that were admitted to the Union during George Washington's presidency. I was like, geez, man, like, or prior to, like, it was nuts. I was like, oh my gosh, I had to go through that. That was really difficult. It's nuts, but yeah, no, it's something that I enjoy, and it's a little break in between, and we get to talk about our nation, the history of our nation's leaders, which is cool. They're incredibly interesting people, man. It's like I've said this before, you have to be the craziest person alive to want to be president of the United States. You have to.
Yeah, I would agree.
You have to be nuts, because at any given moment, no matter who you are, no matter what party affiliation or what your agenda is or whatever, you are loved by half the nation and you're hated by half the nation. It's that simple. Yeah. And that you just have to be nuts to get up every day to go to work and knowing that like half the people in the world hate you and then half the people love you. It's just nuts. But
I couldn't do it.
No, me neither. That's probably why I love it so much. But that was our presidential trivia segment, which is of course is brought to you by United Cigars. featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. Now, fast forward a couple months, folks, we're actually going to be doing 20 days of United. So from Flag Day, June 14th to July 4th is exactly 20 days. And so celebrating our nation's Flag Day and then our nation's Independence Day. We'll be doing a really cool campaign celebrating United Cigars for those 20 days. So it's really something we'll talk to you all more about it in the coming weeks and months, but it's something I'm pretty excited about and that the United Cigars we're going to be doing. So it's pretty cool stuff. So but another fun segment that we have is, of course, is our charity segment. Now, Andy, you haven't been a part of this yet. Something I've done for the last couple of years now, and I asked my guest for a charity of their choosing or nonprofit of their choosing that they want to talk about. And man, I got to say, I loved your pick. What a fabulous organization, the Old Friends Senior Dog Sanctuary. So I'll give you the floor a little bit to talk about why this is something you wanted to chat about tonight.
So it's a local charity here. I believe it's in Mount Juliet area on the south side of Nashville.
That's correct.
What they do is they adopt older dogs and basically set them up on a kind of like a retreat or like a luxurious lifestyle that they can have for the rest of their days until they pass. And it's usually a way of saving some older dogs that might have been disregarded by their owners at some point, and then otherwise they would have been euthanized. So these guys go to the different pounds and adoption places and adopt them and make sure that they live the rest of their days in good health and happy. So I think that's really cool. I'm a dog person. Mary, the fiance, is a big dog person. She was talking highly about this organization as well. So I felt like it was a good thing to spotlight.
Yeah, I put the website in the chat, and then also if you feel called to do so, you can feel free to donate. I'll be making a donation later tonight in your honor, Andy. So thank you so much for bringing this in. I'm a dog person as well. My dog Molly is, as always, every take she is down here at my feet. She's asleep right now. And she's also a rescue too. She is far from being a senior though. She's a pup. She just turned 2 back in January, so she's pretty young.
It's a long life.
I love this what I was reading about this organization. I mean, just fantastic. Not only do they find foster homes for these senior dogs that, like you said, would have, been euthanized or, other unfortunate ends for them, but they also the organization takes care of all the medical expenses.
That's crazy.
It's nuts. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So,
wish I would have thought of it.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned they are in the Mount Juliet area, which is right there in the national. So you have to. This is one of the requirements. So if you want to be, I love what they call it. Geezer guardians is what they call their foster parents.
Geezer guardians.
Geezer guardians. If you become a geezer guardian for Old Friends, you have to live within a 100-mile radius of Mount Juliet so that you can. So obviously the dog can remain and see the in-house veterinarian and everything, and just. But everything is taken care of for these animals to live their twilight, in a loving home. I saw some of the requirements for geezer guardians that you have to, it has to be an indoor dog. You can't, and just a bunch of things to ensure that, a dog lives, a terrific, loved life for the rest. Life. Yeah, for the rest of its years. It's beautiful. I wish I lived closer, man. I would definitely be looking into this. I don't know if I could, but because I don't know. When I lost my dog a couple years ago, I had her for 16 years, and that was
you get attached right away.
That was rough, man. That was rough. So I mean, loving a dog for a couple of years or so would, and then having to say goodbye would probably be pretty brutal for me. But it's so this is such a wonderful, wonderful organization. And I mean, have you guys thought? Have you and Mary thought about becoming Gazer Guardians?
Currently, with our living situation, it wouldn't really work out, but possibly maybe later this year after we get our own
Nice,
place together. But yeah,
sweet,
definitely would be open for it.
beautiful. What a great organization, Andy. Thank you so much. I love this segment because we get so many different different causes and stuff. And dogs are a pretty popular topic that come up, especially when we have Pete Johnson on. But this is one of the most unique ones. So thank you so much.
I like it. I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't been on a show that did anything like that, so that was a good idea.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. You get to learn a lot about what people care about, and these are some terrific causes. And I used to tell people, I'm like, I only have one veto, just because my wife wouldn't be too happy with me if I allowed it. But I don't think anyone's ever going to pick it. It's PETA, by the way, for people whoever future guests, don't pick PETA. That's my veto. So not going to digress into why that's a bad thing, but my wife wouldn't be happy, period. My wife, the zookeeper, would not be happy. So but let's go back into a little bit more about Micallef, and then we've got a few more segments to kind of close out the night here, Andy. So we've talked a little bit about some of the new releases and everything, but you wanted to talk in particular. You've taken a recent trip, and it was actually your first trip down to the facilities in Nicaragua where Micallef cigars are made. So talk a little bit about what that. Now, this was your first trip to Nicaragua, so that was a completely great experience and unique experience together.
Just that alone, yeah. Well, I've been to Dominican a few times with La Flor Dominicana, but this was the first time going to Nicaragua, and there's a big difference. One of the biggest differences is you get off the plane and to get to Esteli, you're taking a 2 to 4 hour, depending on what you're running into on the road, trip to Esteli. So when you would fly to Santiago and Dominican, I could be in Tamboril within 20 minutes. Where that's not the case in Nicaragua. So you have all this excitement. You get down there, you're getting off the plane, and then you get in a truck to drive a good 3 hours to get to your location. But one thing, Bear, one of the reasons I wanted to touch on this a little bit is because there's still a lot of people out there in this industry that don't realize that we have our own factory, that we manufacture all the cigars that are coming out with the Micallef name, from here on are going to be manufactured at our own factory, which is a wonderful establishment. I had only seen pictures. I know some of you guys follow me on Facebook. When I got down there, I just took endless amounts of pictures of the factory and put them on my Facebook page. Some of the guys were really appreciated that I did that. But I mean, we do everything from buying the tobacco to putting it in the cellophane in the box and putting it out there. And actually recently we acquired some acreage in the Condega field valley as well of Nicaragua, which was another part of our trip. We got to go over there and see our plot of land where we're growing a lot of tobacco there, for future binder filler. And the curing barn that we secured over there too was pretty cool. And I mean, all that's in process. So down there we have Alan Davis is the president of the factory. He's actually worked for Al Micallef for years in a little bit of all of his businesses. But he has done a fantastic job down there of setting it up for us to grow. We took over, an old factory. Some people say at one point it was the old Davidoff Nicaragua factory. I'm not sure if that is confirmed or not yet, but we have a beautiful, you come in, you got the beautiful courtyard, you got an apartment with a couple different floors, 3 floors of living spaces. And then, you to the right, to the left, you got the offices. Then you go into the right and you go into the rolling room. We have a room that I think it could probably fit about 70 rollers if it was full. Right now we didn't have 70 on on staff for what we were building currently. But we have, that situation. Joel Gomez, who is the third generation of the Gomez Sanchez family, is the one basically running the factory when Alan's not there. And his brother Adele is also there, quite a bit. But yeah, they got the all the rolling areas right there. We have plenty of rooms where we're stacked. We have bales of tobacco stacked high from Mexico, from Jalapa, from Condega, from different areas around the around the world, where we have plenty of tobacco for future use. It was a straight up full on factory. The pylon, we had pylons that they were rotating for future reference. We were putting, all sorts of stuff together for the future. But I just wanted to share that, we actually have a factory and we construct everything that has to do with our cigars. And a lot of people, I get that question every week. Who makes your cigars? We do. We make our cigars. And, we've started putting a lot more content out there about our factory, showing off what we do down there. When I was down there, we did a lot of filming for future content, which I am so excited to share with the ambassadors and retailers and you, Bear, when it's ready. But we're really going to ramp up our focus of the factory, for the rest of this year and so on and so forth. One thing that we're testing right now in kind of a beta phase is we've put together like a tobacconist program that my sellers can go to retail shops and have their tobacconists go through a guided program on Facebook and learn all about our cigars and kind of take a virtual tour of our factory and all that other stuff. So we're putting a lot of resources in this year to showing off the factory and the farm that we have now. Just gorgeous, by the way.
That's awesome. So was it just you solo on this trip, or did anyone else from the team join you?
So Austin, which was a coworker of yours at one point, and is our Carolina Mid-Atlantic sales manager, he was with me on the trip. He actually won a contest last year to be the first seller to go down on the trip. So
congrats,
that was his kind of ticket in. So him and I went down there, and we just did, we did everything, all the filming. We went to our box. We have a good relationship with the local box factory. We get our cigar bands made at Cigar Rings, so we were able to see, those operations as well, which I hadn't seen anything like that before. Even with my time in, LFD, we saw a lot of the farm and factory, but we got to see a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff.
That's awesome. Now I know you guys are working on some projects that you said earlier that you not necessarily can't talk about at this point, but I mean, when are we projecting that some of those releases will be available? Is it this year, 2023, early 2024? I'm sure all of the above. I mean, what are? Yeah,
all the above, all of the above.
Okay.
The first focus on the first half of the year was the one you just smoked, the Micallef Robusto, the Riata Robusto, and then now, with the great smoke, the big unveiling of the new Leenda Vitolas that are outside of a coffin and a little bit more price friendly for people that really enjoy that blend. And then, after that, we're going to have some of that magic that I'm talking about that you'll see sometime later. And then, yeah, we have stuff set up for the next, the next few years. I mean, our goal right now is to have, something new and exciting, every year. And we just weren't, given what, the state of everything was when Dan and Amanda and myself came on board, we weren't 100% confident in giving our smokers the best stuff until now.
I'm not trying to get anything out of you that you can't say, Andy, but I'm curious though. Like, one of the things we talked about with some of these blends and everything, and again with the Grande Bold going away, is, and I think you'll appreciate this with your background from LaFleur and everything, is I think that's there's not really a powerhouse full-bodied cigar in the Micallef, excuse me, the Micallef
In the Medallia
portfolio.
line?
No, I was in the Micallef portfolio. I think there, I mean, like you said, I think it spans the palates, like you said, from, the Connecticut and some of their milder stuff to, kind of on the cusp of that. I mean, have you guys thought
Mhm.
about getting, a more kind of full-bodied, kind of in-your-face line?
Yeah, the complete answer to that is yes.
Okay. Well, that's exciting.
Have you tried our Herencia Maduro?
I have. Yeah, I have.
Because
Absolutely.
to me that's got some punch to it. To me, it does. That cigar reminds me a little bit of my LFT days.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that for sure. I think I the I definitely I definitely enjoy that cigar. I always find myself going back to the A Churchill. It seems like it's just always so, it just
It's got what
always
you want.
hits. It's always
Yeah.
hits, and it's so good. I love that cigar. Um, I think every time I'm in a retailer that carries Micallef, they always have A's, I feel like, and I feel like I always pick up one or two easily. Like it's always like one I've just always got to have on hand, or always purchasing and stuff. It's just just always speaks to me. I remember I was at Wild Cigar not too long ago down in Burleson, and Dan Thompson happened to be there too. So I got to sit with him and Bob Aiken for a bit, and yeah, I'm smoking today. So, and he looks at me at one point of the conversation. He's like, "You really love that cigar, don't you?" I was like, "Yes, I really do. I really do."
Nice.
So,
It's a gorgeous place, by the way. Wild,
yeah, Chris has done
great spot.
Chris and Nate have done a great job with that place, and it was really cool to be not a part of that, not like a hands-on part of that journey, but seeing that. I mean, Chris was a customer of mine for years, at Michael's, and I know that was a dream of his for a really long time, and to actually see it from, spawn from, from a dream into actual existence was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
cool. Well, is the going back to the factory for just a couple of seconds. Do you think, and maybe you mentioned this, and I apologize if I missed it when you were talking about it. The idea of, like, one of the biggest things that goes on in this business is our factory tours. Is that something that you guys foresee doing at some point during the future for consumers or retailers alike?
Yeah, I would say yes. I don't know how far in the future. I don't think it's like really in the near future, but it is something that we would like to set up a little bit as we grow, as we grow it and understand a little bit more about how it works. We would like to get people down there, but I'm not thinking any time of the next year. We'll bring it to you virtually until then.
Sounds good. You mentioned the new Vitolas and the Leyenda, and you were very precise in saying that this will be outside the coffin. That's what the Leyenda line has been known for. I
Mhm.
want to go back to earlier in the conversation. We were talking about funky Vitolas. The Leyenda kind of fits that boot a little bit, fits that description a little bit. So, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Andy. Are you guys getting? Are you all going to be sunsetting those Vitolas and going more toward traditional with the Leyenda blend, or are you going to keep them
No,
all? Or
we're going to keep all of them. The
okay,
Leanna number one and number two there's a legacy there with Joel and, and the Gomez Sanchez family. That is their baby. That's their pride and joy. That's their family legacy blend. And it is a fantastic cigar. And the packaging is a home run on it, in my opinion. And it sells really well for us even at those price points. But there are a lot of people that want to try that blend and not have to pay for the packaging. So that's why we're doing the Toro and the Robusto, which, completely different sizes than the number one and number two outside of the coffin. So that way more retailer, or not more retailers too, but more consumers can try this blend that we're very, very, high on, but still keep the old traditional number one and number two with the appreciation to the Gomez Sanchez family legacy. So as along with that's not changing, those boxes on the one and number two are not going to change either. And
Okay.
I don't know if you've looked at that box before, but it has the picture of Pedro on it, who's the father of or the grandfather of Joel and Adele, and then it has the family legacy pullout, shelf talker situation on it as well. That is not going to change. It's always going to be, in their honor, and it's going to be more of appreciation type smoke with that unique size, that pyramid. Which, I mean, I love the Leyenda. It's high up on the list of best cigars for me of any brand. So, but I'm really excited for more people to have a chance to try the Leyenda in the Toro and Robusto.
I smoked I was at the Great Smoke last weekend, and I got the opportunity to smoke the Toro, and I got to say I enjoyed it more than some of those legacy slices. Nothing against them at all. Not to say that they're poor. I disliked them, but I did like the traditional, the more traditional Vitola on it. I thought it really worked well. I haven't had the Robusto yet, so.
It was the Toro that they were, since I wasn't there. The Toro was one they were handing out.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of smoking both the Toro and the Robusto. I'm always going to lean towards the Robusto just because that's my style.
Yeah.
But both of them were fantastic cigars. But I'm still always going to find time to smoke one of the original 1 and 2s as well, because I love that pyramid shape. I love it. But yeah, we're excited. We're really excited about that to come out. That's something we've been working on for a while. It's going to come out in the new box with the white Vista on the back, which is slowly taking over the shelves of our Micallef retailers with that new pop, that white Vista that you can see from across the room, where sometimes the old black Vista kind of would get, a shadow would take away from it. It's not going to happen with this. And the boxes are, more shelf friendly. That's another thing with the Leyenda, Robusto, and Toro. You're going to have that five wide box instead of the Leyenda, which in the pyramids and the coffins is 10 wide. And I mean, you could probably put 3 boxes of the Toro Robustos in the same spot that you could put a box of Leyenda number 1, which is another thing that we want to do for our retailers is not take, like I said earlier, the biggest complaint you always get about why not bringing in a brand, or your biggest excuse, is shelf space. So we don't want to make large excessive boxes that are just going to take up shelf space for our retailers. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited about it. And like I had mentioned, if anybody who's watching this wants to get their hands on a Leyenda, Robusto, or Toro, for the next 6 weeks, the only way they can get it is by going to a Micallef Leyenda pre-release event. And most of the people on here on the ambassador page, I've actually created kind of like a tour poster of the shops that are going to be having events over the next 6 weeks, and I've been updating it. So keep your eyes peeled on that as local places that you can find the new Leyendas.
That's awesome. Yeah, check that out. You definitely, if you're a Leyenda fan, you're gonna love these new Vitolas. They are awesome. So that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, just kind of putting a cap on the Micallef portion, just a couple of segments to wrap up our evening, Andy. But before we do, I don't want to go back too far back in the conversation, but we talked about such unique experience that we had at y'all's trade show booth last PCA. Is the plan to attend the PCA this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we will be there.
Well,
what are
you similar experience or?
So we have secured a different size booth. I don't know the exact experience yet that we're going to be giving, but I know the booth size, I believe, is larger. than the one we had last year, and it's in a different spot on the floor. But I would imagine we're still going to be preaching the benefits of working with Micallef and why, what we're doing for the industry. That's going to be a main focus for us.
Awesome. I apologize. I think I cut you off there. I think you were about to ask me something.
Well, I was going to ask you your thoughts on the PCA change for next year.
I've thought about it a little bit. That's a really great question. I've thought about it a little bit, and I know it'll be a point of discussion over the next few weeks, and I'll be part of that discussion probably on a number of shows with Coop and other folks and everything as well. I think I'm still trying to digest. I'm not trying to avoid your question at all, Andy. I'm still trying to digest it. Yeah, I'm hoping it's not too much of a problem for me. That is still Q1, and that's a busy time of year for my day job. So
sure.
that puts a little bit of a wrinkle in it. I'm sure I'll be attending. I don't think it'll preclude me from doing that. I'm interested to see. I can't say this. I'm interested to see what it does to attendance, because I think that's what we've been hearing, right? And that was one of the main motivations for the change, was that people were like, well, I can't get away from my store in July, et cetera, blah, blah. What's that going to do? So what does that do? So does that free them up to come in? I think there's some great buying opportunity that time of year. I know you guys aren't a part of the organization, but I've thought about, again, the conflict with TAA, which apparently is moving. I've heard.
Yeah, from what I believe, or from what I've heard, is there was constant communication with the PCA and the TAA on making this decision.
So that's good. So I think there's some positive attributes there. I think they're trying to give their members the best that they can. Not to flip the question back on you. I mean, what does that do from the manufacturer perspective? Because that's a major shift. Because I mean, for the decades,
I think for the first year, definitely the first year, it's going to be challenging for manufacturers because what you have planned. When you're planning out new releases and you're planning out what you're going to produce, you're doing it probably about 18 to 24 months in advance. Right. So basically, most manufacturers already have a general idea of what they wanted to showcase in the PCA of 2024. I know we do. I would imagine most manufacturers already have a general idea of next year's showcase. So if you move that up, you're moving that up 4 months. I think that it's going to create some sort of what do you call it? They're going to be scrambling to get something together to at least show off in March. Mm-hmm. But I would imagine next year a lot of those releases still are not going to ship until the third or fourth quarter of whatever is showcased at the event. Where I think now that we know this, and if it goes forward 25, we can be more prepared for. But I think the first year will be a little bit wonky, and I just hope that no one freaks out about that. Like I don't want anybody making a rash decision. I don't want a manufacturer or PCA or retailer making a rash decision about the future of it just because we have a little bit of a wonky year. Mm-hmm. Because I do believe that the springtime is the best time for a trade show. For the retailers, it's most of the retailers, it's right before their busiest part of the year. It gives them more time in the year to sell the product that they take in at the trade show. More people are amped to travel that time of year. And if you're going to go to it in Vegas, I don't know how many people tell me they don't go to Vegas in July just because of the weather. I mean, it's a common excuse. You won't really have that in March. It'll be beautiful over there in March. And no matter where they put it in March, except if, it was in Montana, maybe it's a problem. But New Orleans, Florida, Texas, Las Vegas, Arizona, if they decide to do it there. March is a fantastic time to travel and do a trade show.
I've
in my
never
opinion.
experienced Vegas this time of year, so that'll be interesting. I've never been to a TPA, so I've never experienced Vegas this time of year. So that'll be an interesting change. The to your point about logistics, that was something that I thought you guys weren't part of it in 21. 21 was a nightmare for logistics. People were like, hey, the cigars are ready. We're waiting on boxes. That was the kind of the theme of 21. Last year, like it seemed like everyone had their stuff, all their ducks lined in a row. It was great. Like, I was like, that was a question I was asking, like everyone, like we were talking about new releases. Okay, when's this available to your retailer? Oh, it's shipping now. Oh, it'll ship in a couple of weeks, right? I mean, it was right then for like the first time either observing the trade show from the outside or being a part of it, that people were like, yeah, it's shipping now, or it's shipping very soon. And they were able to make good on that promise, manufacturers across. And you guys were certainly a part of that this year, like with the lowercase a, for example. So that was kind of cool. So yeah, like to your point, I think that'll be logistically, that'll be different if what's promised in March of next year, and then what ultimately gets delivered to the shelves and when it gets delivered to the shelves. So that will be interesting. So I know.
Yeah, but I believe it's only going to be a year adjustment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't be fixed.
I think so. I think you're right about that. So yeah, look, excited. Change is coming, exciting things. So good stuff. So
yeah.
All right. Well, wanted to dive into our final couple segments here, Andy. We can call it a night. Thank you so much for being a part of our conversation tonight. It's always great catching up with you, and just some really great stuff going on with Micallef. So this is exciting. But the first segment, of course, is our Asylum Cigar Moment, which is brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. Now, Andy, this is the first time you've been a part of this segment too, so get to hear a moment of yours. This segment is dedicated around that moment with you and a cigar. Now, you've probably had several of these over the years, but cigars are very much community driven, right? You know, that's where we met. We met in a cigar shop. We met with other people. We smoked cigars together around other people, and that's what makes this industry so attractive. And definitely, it's our best parts. The open house that you guys do is which we haven't touched on. I'll use this to segue to talk about it a little bit, but I mean, that case in point about the community that you guys have built, it's a community thing. But every so often, whole point of the segment, every so often we get to enjoy a cigar that's by ourselves, and it could be maybe celebrating something, maybe it's just like the ad said, a moment of reflection. But what's one that comes to mind, Andy? What was the cigar, if you can remember, what was the cigar you were smoking, and what was that moment about?
So you're just asking me to like pick one?
Yeah, I'm sure you've had several. I'm not saying pick your favorite or the most important or anything like that.
Oh man, probably when I had to leave LFD, having an El Museo.
Oh, damn.
With a glass of whiskey, just reflecting on my time with them. That was a big one.
Oh, wow.
El Museo is my favorite cigar that I've ever had a chance to smoke, and I've smoked maybe 10 of them, and I was making it a tradition to smoke them every year on my birthday for a while, and then I'm down to one, and I'm like, I only have one left, and I guess I'm going to save it for my 40th. But yeah, that was a big moment for me as far as tying in a smoke to a moment that meant a lot to me. Because that wasn't an easy situation.
Yeah. I bet it was, like you said, it was a direct transition from LFD to Nat Sherman, which was, I guess, made it not knowing you weren't leaving the industry. but like
Mhm.
making, what had been part of your identity, La Flor Dominicana, in your first foray into the industry, and then suddenly making a change and a shift, especially to a completely different company and stuff, sure was really challenging for you. The moment
Yeah,
itself, though, with El Museo, that's awesome. I've had three of them, and I agree, they're fantastic.
such a fantastic smoke.
Um, what is it about that cigar that you love so much?
It's just got such a unique flavor to it. I can't put my hand on it or my finger on it, but the flavor profile is just like it's got this like floral spice to it that I've never had in any other cigar. And obviously on top of the fact that it's a unicorn, it's not easy to get your hands on.
Right.
It's a beautiful cigar. The
Mhm.
wrapper and the box is gorgeous. It just from the first time I had one, it was always special to me.
Yeah.
It's an amazing cigar, and I wish that that could be replicated somehow, some way. Because it's been a few years since I've even seen one for me to have the ability to buy it.
Yeah. I haven't. I don't think I've ever seen one. I was gifted the ones that I have two left, and I was gifted all of them. I've smoked three, so I've gifted all five. Have never
Wow.
seen the opportunity to buy it. I
When
would
I
in a heartbeat.
first when I first came on board with LFD, I went around kind of gobbling some up that I had seen. But yeah, I don't since I've left LFD, I don't think I've seen one for sale
Yeah,
anywhere.
it's crazy. Awesome. What a beautiful moment.
Yeah, great
Um,
cigar.
that was our Asylum Cigars moment of refuge. It's more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So Andy, I mentioned a little bit about the Ultimate House. And before we go into our last question, which is our curveball segment, of course, um, just talking a little bit about like, we've talked about the amazing job that you guys did with building the ambassador group, and that's exactly what the open house is about. It's a place for all the ambassadors to kind of convey. And I had the opportunity to go this year, back in September. What an incredible event that was.
So
Um,
fun.
it's just it was absolutely a blast. Um, and I mean, you guys like there's I wish I could be more descriptive with it, but you guys do it right. it just it is so enjoyable. It's so focused on the consumer. It's a fans haven for Micallef Cigars. I love that. I was hearing a lot of talk about how people make it like a vacation of sorts. Like this is just one
Oh,
evening,
absolutely.
but there's so many other events that are around it, kind of similar to the Great Smoke, but different from the Great Smoke for what Abe does. And Abe does a great job with the Great Smoke. But these are consumer driven, like, ambassador driven, like adjacent events that are hosted by ambassadors that come in. It's just what a really cool. I didn't get to experience any of the adjacent events, but what a cool experience to just like listen and be a part of what they're talking about doing and talking about plans for this year. And I mean, what
Yeah,
awesome.
all we did in the beginning was we picked a day, a Saturday. It was actually supposed to be the anniversary of when we broke away from doing business with Big Online. And we were going to celebrate that decision every year on this Saturday where we just open the warehouse. Like we open the warehouse, we get food, we get a few little activities for the ambassadors to do. And it was honestly like you think about it, it's a real simple idea.
Right.
And the
Best ideas
first year
are.
we yeah, the first year we did it, there wasn't a whole lot, you know, planned ahead of time outside of just the open house. I think, AME Cigars in Weatherford, Texas is right there next to the warehouse. So I know a lot of the ambassadors were planning on going there during the day before the open house on Saturday. So they wanted to plan an event around it, smart. But the day before, I remember ambassadors reaching out to me that week saying, "Hey, we're all coming in on Friday. Uh, we want to go to Riata, or we want to go to Silverleaf. We want to all get together and have something fun. I was like, okay, well, I'll be there. Let's all go to freaking dinner together. So like that was their idea. Let's plan this, let's do all that. So what we did the second year is we actually set up a cigar dinner on the roof of Riata. And I took a list of ambassadors that were interested in going, and I think we had like 50 people up there, and it was fantastic. We had a designated menu for them, and you could smoke cigars, and it ended up being a really comfortable night up there. It wasn't too hot. But they also coupled that this year with a golf tournament, and then they wanted to go like shooting. A few of them went shooting. What's crazy to me is the fact that we created this social platform called the Ambassador Group, and these guys have made lifelong friends with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just that avenue for them to do it. We provide the group, we provide the cigars, and honestly, we provided entertainment at first. Now it's mostly them providing entertainment. They get together every Monday night on the ambassador page and do a herf. They plan all sorts. They were planning all sorts of get-togethers at the Great Smoke when they were down there. They went golfing and all that good stuff. So they it's organic. It really is really fun. And I mean, we have some ideas of how we want to expand on it this year, but I guarantee you that there's going to be several more ideas thrown at us by the ambassadors between now and the open house this year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's like you were there. It was simple. We had food, we had some trivia games, we had some putt going on. There was
tour
nothing.
of the facility too. Yeah.
Tour of the facility. We'll show you the humidors where all the cigars are kept. And that's about it. We just want to all get together and have fun and have a good time. And we're hoping eventually we can start having ambassador get-togethers in different parts of the country for people that can't make it to Weatherford. But you're right, there a lot of these guys, people tell me all the time they already have it on their calendar. They've already asked off of work for it for this year. They make a full vacation out of it.
Yeah.
So
Coop's pledged to come down this year, and I'll be going as well. And again, and it's just it's something I'm just genuinely looking forward to. I didn't know what to expect this year, going, I've seen pictures, I've heard about the experience. It looks great and everything. All I can tell people is like, it's something you should try to do, because it really is great. And you guys have done a great job with it. And your group has, like you said, taken a life of its own, and they've really taken ownership of it. And it's a really great opportunity to get together. So I think,
yeah, the more the merrier. I mean, I'd love to see you there again this year, Coop. That would be great. I think the tobaccos want to try to make it this year. But yeah, it's a laid back, fun night. That's all I can say about it.
Good stuff.
I generally have some of the most fun of my entire year on open house.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing you then again, Andy. Of course, I'll see you at PCA first before that.
Yeah,
but
true.
But it's come that time to wrap up our show. The Dunbar Tobacco and Trust curveball segments, fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park. Count them up, 8 consecutive years in the consensus top 3. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. So Andy, we've talked a little bit about your background. We've talked, and so, obviously there's you've had some challenging jobs in your career and everything. So here's my curveball question for you. What do you think is harder? Running a chain of hotels in Florida over spring break week for 52 straight weeks, so a year of spring breaks for hotels, or starting a cigar company? What's harder?
Wow. Well, I would say, it's funny because I think they're both equally hard, but in different aspects of
One
the
could be
energy
very
you'd be
real and one's
using.
obviously impossible. So it like
Yeah, well, but okay, so the year of spring breaks would be physically hard. Where starting a cigar company, and I've been part of this with Micallef, is extremely mentally hard. So it's like two different types of energy that you would be using for each situation. What would I rather do? I'd rather start a cigar company. I think that would be a little bit more fun. I think the spring break situation would get old rather quickly.
taxing.
It would be very taxing. I'm sure there's some perks to that, but yeah, I had a great time working for Hilton for 10 years. There's aspects I miss about the hospitality industry, but there's the energy and the hard work, the physical, work that you put in running a hotel. I don't miss that. I
Yeah.
don't miss that at all because there's so much unpredictability. There's so much, hours that you just don't know you're going to work that you end up working. It's a lot. So that would definitely be the lesser of two evils by far.
I literally just made up that first part of it, obviously.
Spring break for a year.
What was the hardest time of year? I mean, I just imagine it would be spring break for anything in Florida. I mean, was it the holiday season? Like, what was the hardest part about managing, like, hardest time of year rather?
Honestly, it wasn't really spring break. It was like events.
Okay.
In Florida, you would have like Daytona 500 was a big deal.
Oh, sure.
That was a pain in the ass. Um, Miami, I worked in an airport hotel, so it was a lot more of
Oh, shit.
that transient travel. But we had the Super Bowl down there when I was there, and that was a pain in the ass. Uh, Texas, we had the ice storm. What
Right.
year was that?
2010, the
Yeah,
Super Bowl.
2010. Yeah, the 2010 ice storm. No, we had one after that because I didn't live there in 2010. I moved there in 2011, but we had one in like 2012 or 2013,
Yeah.
and it was in December. And I remember, we had basically the hotel closed for like a week, and then our company had this fantastic idea that we were going to have house rooms for UPS because UPS had to send a bunch of people to Texas to catch up for holiday shipments. And our whole entire hotel was rented by UPS for a week. And you would think that would be easy peasy. No, we had to serve them food. We had different shifts coming in at different times. And I mean, it was a complete and utter nightmare. That
Some
was terrible. And then Nashville, you had when I worked in downtown Nashville, we had CMA Fest, and that was a nightmare. That was
oh,
ugh. So usually it's around in a specific like event that's the worst.
gotcha.
Not so much a spring break week.
Or a
Now
season. Yeah.
I never did work on the what do you call it? On the beach or anything like that. So I mean maybe it would be different for a beach property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After that ice storm situation, when Carney called and offered you a job, you're like, yes, yes, I can't say yes fast enough.
Jeez. Yeah. That was bad. So oh, goodness. A short story, but I feel so bad for this person. We had a paraplegic staying at our hotel during the ice storm, and he had one of those cars that he, had to blow in to drive. It was a
Right.
specially made car. And when we had the ice storm, when the ice melts, the freaking ice comes off the roof. So before we were able to get everybody to move their cars, sure enough, this giant chunk of ice fell from 10 stories up and totally
Oh,
demolished his car.
oh, of
Looked like
course.
a it
Oh
looked like
God.
one of those big trucks. What are they called? The monster trucks. Like
Yeah.
just ran over the car. And sure enough, this guy had, it took us 2 days to figure out how to get him a replacement car, and he was just livid. And I just felt so bad for the guy because he couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff that you don't think about, the
Yeah.
unpredictability in a hotel situation, and you're just like, oh crap.
Yeah.
Like now I got to deal with this, and this guy, he could freaking sue us. Like he has a right to. So yeah,
Wow.
that stuff I don't miss. I don't
Yeah.
miss that.
Good times. Not at all. All right. Well, that was our curveball segment brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. And that, of course, concludes our evening. Andy, thank you so much for making some time on a Sunday to sit and chat with me for a couple of hours here. And I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for the cigars. Really
My
enjoyed
pleasure.
the A Robusto. Definitely going to be in my rotation going forward. And it's been a real pleasure as always catching up with you. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, Bear. I was looking forward to it for the last few weeks. So I'm glad that I finally was able to do, a one-on-one with Bear, because the last time we had Dan with me.
Yeah.
No offense to Dan, but was looking for my first shot. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you healed up too. I know you were sick this past week, so that's good that you were feeling a lot better for tonight too. That would have been a real stinker.
That would suck.
So for everyone out there, really appreciate all the likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. The ambassadors were staying with us up late, strong. Thank you so much to everybody out there. You can always check out our YouTube page, ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Check out a calendar of upcoming guests and everything on our Facebook page. We always put stuff out there as well. We've got some great shows lined up for you in the next couple of weeks. James Brown from Oveja Negra, and a couple of others will be joining us. Got some really cool stuff, like I talked about, the United campaign that we're going to be starting here in a couple of months too. Got some great people from those brands that will be stopping by too. Some great stuff on the horizon. Don't want to miss it. So stay tuned. We got some great guests coming up, some great takes. And as always, we really do appreciate all those likes, shares, and comments. If you are listening to us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, don't forget to hit the subscribe, review, please, and download. If you are a subscriber, do me a favor, hit unsubscribe, but don't forget to hit resubscribe because it helps my numbers. And that helps me get great guests like Andy whenever I want. So keep that happening as well. Do appreciate everyone out there. This is our 245th take. Done 245 of these. Holy cow. It's unbelievable. Got a great take for our 250th coming up. You don't want to miss that here in a couple of weeks as well. But for everyone else tonight, thank you so much for joining us live from the Alec Bradley studios of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always. And guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.